Hi guys, I'm Maxim. Welcome back to Art Medicine. We started a project painting black and white little painting of a person's head or face. Today we'll be finishing it. I'd like to show you some of my miniature paintings that were completed just over the last year, and this is in relationship to what we are doing today. We are going to be continuing working on a black and white miniature painting of a woman's face. So these are little pieces of wood panels. They are recycled from reno jobs, outside scavenging, friends donating a box of offcuts for me to repurpose as artwork. And I love being able to do this because these are little paintings that I can complete within an hour, sometimes more, sometimes less, and I could be working on them as warm-up exercises, as experiments in just looking for a new image, a combination of colors that I wanted to use, but I never got to using on a big canvas because it was so ambitious and labor consuming. Well, this is the ground for just doing a whole bunch of fun and good looking artwork and having satisfying results and learning a lot and having inventory to and for sale inventory or gift shop inventory. And there they are. Here we are at the paint station. There's a palette, a piece of cardboard. I got my brushes in a container with water. There's a spray container, spray bottle, various tools, paint, some artwork in the background, and there is our project right there. And inspirational sketches and paintings on the wall beside me to get me interested and excited in my own process. I am setting up for continuing working on my project. After the last time we've seen this picture, I had a chance, maybe I spent 5-10 minutes just cleaning it up a little bit. You see that there's some improvement in a couple of areas. I kind of rebuilt the eyebrow and it was going upwards diagonally this way, and now I have it going another way and a bit more subtle, on a subtle angle. I got into this area, a nose, and I rounded this shape here. I crafted a little bit more detailed information within the shadow and how it goes and connects with the next area. And I introduced a little bit more detail and definition to this shadow within the eye. I added a little bit of light over there. I further looked at the mouth, and I was fiddling a little bit with the corners of the mouth and finding the most what I would think more interesting shape. I kind of cut quite a bit off that side, and I kind of drew a dark upwards a little bit, and maybe upwards a little bit here. And one other thing, I added a little bit of definition to how the hair, the banks or the strand of hair is going over the forehead and the kind of shadow it's forming. And lastly, I went and built a little bit more transition from darker black gray to medium black gray and a little lighter. And I left the light areas for us to look at how, so we'll be looking at how I'm finishing this further today. As a strategy, when I begin my painting or drawing session, when I just first start to work on a project this day, I would like to warm up and have less demanding tasks to start with. So I'm plotting my strategy. My strategy is now to warm up by mixing darker grays that could land within the areas of shadow within the area that's fairly general, like, just a shadow within the hair or a background. And I would like to just stay with moving paint around, just mixing and getting myself into the job, into the process, starting to participate on a connected level with myself. So I'm just getting into it pretty much. So yes, I'm looking at how I want to finish those details within the face of this subject, let's say. But I am saying, hold your horses, Maxim. Let's warm up. Let's just mix paint. Let's see how we are diluting it with water and how a brush is leaving marks for me to evaluate, for me to look at. So I am wanting not to get pressed for producing like really good detailed work right off the bat as I'm starting to get into my fun, my what makes my heart sing. Let's create, but I'm asking myself to to use a lot of patience and to be like, you just take it easy and hold my horses. Can't stress that enough. This works for me every time. I am eager, I am excited, I am wanting to get the job completed, and I want really good results right away, but that just isn't reasonable. I just had my breakfast. I just listened to some podcast that I was interested in, and I'm not yet ready to produce good results painting, but I will be. Will I? Absolutely. Maybe. So I will stay with arranging the background a little bit more. Maybe I'm going to resolve this area where it's a bit choppy. There's this lighter area and it's not connected to the nearby areas too well. I am feeling really connected. On the inside, I'm like, yay, painting. I'm like one with the brush and the medium, and I'm just placing things in a good way. I'm flowing in my process. So I'm going to complete the various details within the face. And my clues are, well, they come from experience and from my education, but surely I can formulate, I can give you an idea of what I'm thinking about when I'm so in this painterly style of working, where we see like a roughness of the brush marks, like this is unmistakably a painting. It is made by hand. It is expressive via its appearance, and the appearance is brought about by how these paint strokes, marks, how they interact together. Like there would be, let's say, a movement of a brush downwards diagonally on this area, and then there will be a movement of a brush with a lighter tone of gray over it above. So now there is a dynamic angle and a type of paste, like you could see the piece of paint, the film of paint sitting at this angle on top of this piece of paint or area of paint that's moving this way, and their edges are sort of left rough. So it is a painting and it has painterly marks. It is expressive. So what I'm thinking about is, how can I make a transition that is continuous and consistent. I can stitch this darker area with this lighter area with a short linear brush strokes, and that produces a three-dimensional effect. It's like darker gray goes to medium gray, goes to lighter gray, and you could see how three-dimensional thick paint strokes increase the movement of light and dark. So there is a kind of a curvature that's observed. And then a connection between one area and another, adjacent areas connection. I use what is called a soft edge, where I fade ever so slightly the edges of areas that are touching. Then there is another sense of curvature going in the distance. So there's no hard edge. Right now, this gray beside this black looks a little hard edged, but I will be able to fade it slightly by really lightly painting over the edge of that area, creating a type of fade. And what I'm looking for is having lighter and darker tonal differences between areas that are different. Let's say a lower lip is extending out from the face, but over here the kind of gray I used before was darker in tone. Therefore, it was blending with the nearby area where the lip is painted. So now that I am moving towards detailing or finalizing my project, now I am able to adjust these tonal variations. I am really slowing down and zooming in on an area, and I'm finding how can I create a continuous transition from one area to another. Why is there, let's say, such a dark little bit over here, and it's kind of competing with this dark area? So maybe I'll just fade that out with a lighter gray paint stroke over it, without feathering or fidgeting over it too much. I don't want to have a smooth surface. I want to save the evidence of a painterly process, but I also want to have continuous quality to how I am going about connecting different areas. Like, it's a little bit flat here, and maybe there's too much gray, a darker gray here, so maybe we'll work on adjusting and finalizing that area too. And I am carefully adding a little bit of dark or a shape, and then I'm carefully cutting back into it to like to cut that back, let's say. And then if I see that maybe a little more light could be added to some areas, then I go ahead and mix the necessary lighter gray, and I build an area of light into that. Maybe I jump from light to dark here, a little too much of a jump. Let's cut right into that and hope that the result will be satisfying. I'm getting really close to liking how overall this her face is looking, or what the balance between all the proportions, and I'm liking the kind of shapes I created here. I'm liking that the mouth is looking quite three-dimensional. It's got lively and expressive quality. You can see the brush marks, and it's moving along nicely. There's like a cool looking, like a nice looking shape to the nose. There is a complexity that's gotten into the edges of the shape. Remember how it started out being really general. So now I'm thinking maybe the eyes are like a big focus of a figure. When I look at a painting and I see a human face there, or a figure, the eyes are just wired into my psyche to pay attention to. So I look at the eyes quite a bit. So in order to not to overwhelm myself while painting, I leave the eyes to do at the end, for the last bit. So maybe I can go back into the eyes now and establish that there is an eyelid with a crease of a skin behind it or above it. Then there is an area of eyelashes combined with the shape of the shadow of the entire object of the eye. And maybe I can build a pupil into it, but I don't want to overdo the detail. I want the painting to gain lively, expressive, or aliveness quality without going resorting to having to recreate a realistic photographic version of a human eye. It's not necessary for me to do a painting that is mimicking photography or video, or like living reality. Yes, I'm learning from life, but I am interpreting it in a painterly language of shadow, midtone, and light, direction of a brush stroke or a mark, and linear line. And so this is its own language. The painting or the drawing has got its own a way of communicating information, visual information. And we're looking at how I go about putting that visual information together. It is always possible to see what is really happening in a demo like this. If one little brush stroke changes a whole lot of things. Like maybe I would like to spend some time and work on the eyes a little more and move things around and give myself a room to fail and succeed and build it up. And I'll just do that. It ends up being a process of adding a little bit of dark, reshaping the object, then adding a little more light, even moving. I move the eye slightly, like a hair this way to the left. And it's getting there now. I am liking what the image is looking like to me. And now I'd like to maybe just go over all of my highlights or lighter areas within the painting and just like further refine them, or put final touches on these highlights. And in this method of painting, I move from dark to light progressively. So my highlights and lightest areas are coming in last. And why is that? This is because light area picks up the sunlight or the light in the room and reflects it. And that enhances the effect of light area within a painting. So I want the light area naturally, in terms of physics, to pick up the light, reflect it back, and act as a highlight, and not otherwise. So I don't want my darker areas to be like super three-dimensional as brush strokes and have a sheen or a shine to them. And with light or details, I'm asking myself to be really careful not to overdo this. It's so easy to disturb already crafted and like areas that are already crafted and created and they are working. All of a sudden I'm gonna come in with a bunch of like white or lighter gray and just paint over them and lose the 3D quality and the expressive quality. So I'll flatten the image with that. So I want to be really careful and really slow about how I go about. Like there, you see, maybe that's a highlight on the lower lip, but maybe it's just a smear of white paint that's like too obvious, too out of place. And we'll see. And there they are. And I'm fairly happy with what the face is looking like. And you remember, this is done for the purpose of making these miniature paintings where, alright, let's create mysterious, expressive, really fun painted impression of a face. Boom. And then we will imagine what else can enter into a painting, like brush strokes or palette knife strokes. So that's obviously a painting and an artwork. Or we will add a drawing or a graffiti of a landscape or an abstraction, or like lines going this way. So, just creating an art project, being creative, making a painting. So I am setting this up to then, now I can get into the background maybe, and maybe I can bring some elements of fun, other objects into the painting. I am using a palette knife, and I am mixing black and white to get different grays. And then with the palette knife, I load it like this, and the paint is sitting on the back of it. And then like a little spatula, a little buttering of material on the surface is happening. So here, let's make a couple of palette knife marks, and look at how they interact. Do you see? It's got a different quality to the kind of quality that the brush is capable of producing. I like the expressiveness of the broadness, the expressiveness of the palette knife, what it can do. And there are really, I don't know, there's probably a limit to how many things you can do with it, but it's quite a lot. Like you could draw and swoosh and move the paint around, and it could go on different angles. And let's experiment and create with this tool. And I often, for this type of work, I often take the palette knife to the background, and then I often come into the previously painted image to like merge the areas, like, so I'm like, boom, I'm coming in, kapow, there is I started this movement here, and then I'll break it up with maybe another kind of movement and stroke. Now the image is now starting to integrate, to connect to the rest of the field, and then the rectangle of the picture is going to look continuous and uniformed and easy to look at without so we're not finding empty areas soon. Maybe not to overkill with the amount of detail and information would be a good idea, but to definitely add some expressive detail to with ease as well, in order for me to, so this is, I don't know how I would paint this kind of wonderful abstract surface with a brush. It's probably gonna look different. Maybe I can paint it with a piece of another flat edge tool, maybe, and there could be lots of things that we can do with paint. And when it comes to creating, you know already, I'm pretty sure this is appealing to people who already are artists, and you guys are digging it. You can kind of tell what I'm doing here. I am just explaining everything, and I am bringing it to you kind of I digested all of this. I have lots of, like, I have an understanding of methods I'm using, and I love sharing this. My friends, students, other artists, family members, they ask, Maxim, how do you do this? Well, this is how I do this. Yay! And then I am thinking, all right, what would make this project finished or completed? What would I like to see in this painting? What are my creative goals for this? What would be fun? I am thinking this is a kind of a flat and a darker area, and that's usually the area, or maybe here a little bit, like all of this is kind of working. There's a lot of depth, diverse, light and dark, and painterly information. There are things to look at here, but not here. So do I want to put something there? Maybe I can, so I make an executive choice and a creative choice on that. And my experience and my interest or passion is to add landscape elements, animals, symbolism, whimsy. I want this to be an artwork. I want this to be, yeah. So you know what I'm saying. Do you? So I'm thinking I'm gonna have a bird here, and it's gonna be an impression of a kind of a bird that, like a seagull, or a bird that has wide wings. And I'm looking at a bunch of pictures, and I'm finding just on my computer screen off to the side, and I'm thinking, oh, I like this one. And I'm just like looking at the picture, and I'm drawing it out, and I'm hoping that it's gonna land well and interact well with the existing image. And so drawing it out, contours of the shape of the bird. That's a funny bird. Just kidding. My attitude, inner attitude, is just take time, be in a play mode. I don't expect myself to be great. I'm just having fun using paint on a piece of board, and I am doing what I like doing with myself right now. So this is already an achievement enough, just having fun. And then I am also keen on exerting my potential in such way that, all right, let's try to go up from where I've been before, like become more masterful, more skilled at these tasks. I enjoy seeing my own progress or personal growth. How wonderful it is to be able to become more skilled as an artist. So I just participate. Let me take a little bit longer to craft this item, and I'll come back. It's starting to to come about. It's an impression of a bird, or at least that's what I think. It doesn't have to, for my purpose, for the paintings that I'm making, I like if the object turns out not all that representational. Like, why can't this be and just some kind of a ambiguous shape flying or sitting within that area? It is already working in terms of breaking this darker area up with a type of dynamic element. And when I am looking at the picture, I am, oh look, I'm discovering there might be a bird there too. That's why that's what paintings are good for, imagination. So I got that element there, and I want to go back to a bit more highlights within the figures, within the person's hair. It looks a little dark in here. It would be nice to give additional information. This is to me, this is putting more, giving more attention to my work. I care about my work. I am passionate about it. I love creating. Then why wouldn't I attend with even greater amount of attention? Why not spend a bit more energy? And it's not perfecting. This is just like a cherry on top. This is yes, it is detail, but it is not a perfection detail. This is just putting more fun information into the artwork. Or is it? And that's it is also easy to disturb the existing balance and end up with less satisfying results after making additional efforts. But that's okay, because we can we can go back and change that too. Let's see if a little more palette knife action, maybe actually. This is just showing you how I experiment, and I often, like, I would bring back a drone element, a line back into the picture, make it, I don't know, like, there's gotta be some kind of freedom. There's gotta be some kind of what is it? Like a playfulness and freedom to the elements that are brought into the painting. What is there to be too restrictive about? Yes, it's nice to organize, and to less is more oftentimes for art. And yeah, I want the life to be preserved within this picture. And at some point we just make a call on Like, is it finished? Do I like these results? Or would it be nicer if I highlighted it a little more with the palette knife? Would it? Don't know. Let's see. Oh! I kind of like that. Maybe some light is shining underneath the wing of the bird. Maybe there are more light areas beyond what is the hair of the person. Maybe I can like go right into the central shape and mess it up a little bit. So this is where we are today. Before I finish the painting, I would let it sit and look at it. I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll look at it as I'm having breakfast, having coffee or tea or water, and I would notice something that I would like to slightly tweak about it, slightly change, or maybe I will end up loving the image, loving the piece the way it is, and then I'll leave it, and that would be it. So this is it for this project. Thanks for sticking around, guys. And here is a close-up view of the surface of the painting. This is where we can really see the quality of brush strokes, palette knife strokes. There is that painterly roughness, liveliness evident there. And then all of that is like pieces of a puzzle. All of that is coming together to work together as one image.